I think music and actually anxiety have saved me, to be honest. They've probably saved my life, ironically.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. But I guess, you know, that's having the ability to kind of look at it with reflection, the introspection of it, to look at it, you know, front on. You know, so many of us, as you say, we're labelled, or we label ourselves even these days, and sit behind that label without actually sort of looking at it square on and trying to pull it apart a bit, and how did we get to this, and what does it really mean? You know, and there's a silver lining sometimes in that adversity, isn't there? I think, you know, there's things to learn in the darkest moments, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I got told, I mean, I was in and out. I lived in Thailand for a year. I was spending a lot of time in America. I was going to AA meetings all over the world. And that wasn't for me, because although I had an alcohol problem, I was a binger. Mm-hmm. I could go on tour for 3 months, be in a different club for most nights with the opportunity to have what I wanted when I wanted, not touch a drop, because I didn't have to drink. My thing was, if I choose to let loose, that's it. I'm going 1,000,000% into it, and waking up with hair of the dog and carrying it on 2-3 days. And that kind of went back when I was younger. I remember having a session with mates in the park, being a little bit tipsy, and then 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon saying, oh, should we get back on it? You know, but it was a little bit innocent back then. And then it became earlier, waking up, let me just go to the shop and have a can, take the edge off, get back on it. And that progressed into something. But I became a bit of a pest out and about. So I'd go to clubs, and my rider at one point was a bottle of vodka and 10 beers. I'd rarely get through any of that. I was just trying to be the big rock star. Until I was like, too many horror stories of the stupid stuff I'd done. And when you've got a bit of limelight on you, and then you're waking up to pictures on forums of you hanging over a chair with an empty bottle of vodka in some state, and I've got kids that could see it and stuff. I switched that off. So I locked it off in the public, but I became this closet binge drinker. So I could go on tour, not touch it, because I was getting into fights, and, you know, but people knew who I was doing this stupid stuff. And it was fun for a lot of people. Oh, Outrage, he's this outrageous
living up to his name.
Yeah, exactly. And it was exactly that. I mean, you just ask the Wincots, they'll soon tell you. But I switched that off, because I can't keep doing that, because I'm going to get myself into some serious. I'd wake up in a doorway in King's Cross at 8 o'clock in the morning from the night before, thinking, what did I do last night? And then just going into the off license around the corner, getting back on it and getting the train home and having another 2 days on it. Like, just some random stuff like that, where I'd wake up under a stage in Eastern Europe at this festival I'd played at. Everyone was gone, and I'm under the stage sleeping with my record bag, missing my plane back home. I missed planes home from Australia because I was in after parties, waking up with a pink blanket, hugging a bottle of Captain Morgan in some random house of people, you know, and like just stuff like that, spending $1,000 to get back home. And I was just, couldn't carry on, man, because I shouldn't be alive. But anyway, I switched that stuff off, and I became this closet drinker where I'd go on tour, come home, and almost like a way to switch off. I'd have a drink, 3 days would go by, I'd wake up, all these empty cans. That progressed to 5 days, 6 days, maybe every 3 months. My last binge was 13 days long. Wow. And I remember very little of it. And throughout that whole period, I was going in and out of therapy, counselling, Alcoholics Anonymous, which wasn't for me, because I was around people that were struggling to not drink every day. So I just couldn't relate to that side of it. You know, I think AA is probably great, but that wasn't for me. What was for me was one-to-one therapy. But I became this closet drinker, and that got very dangerous. And the last thing I remember about my last session was I went to this drop-in centre called CAN. It's like it's a drop-in centre run by addicts and alcoholics and stuff. Great place. They're, you know, warm. They understand it because they've been there. And this one person said to me, this lady, she said, "You're going to die." She looked at me. It was after my last binge. I was grey. I wanted to tear my stomach out through anxiety. And she said, "You're going to die." And it's the last thing and it's the last time. I haven't touched a drop since. But prior to that, my mum was begging me. I remember even once my son said, "Oh, you know, what you doing?" And
how long ago would that have been, Andy?
7 years.
7 years. Wow, congratulations.
I haven't touched a drop in 7 years.
7 years is the cycle as well. 7 year cycle. We're at that point of the evolutionary pattern starts to turn again, doesn't it? So you feel good, you feel strong.
I love it. Whenever I think of alcohol, which is rare, my stomach turns. It
Really?
takes me back to that moment where I was feeling probably at my lowest. Because I've had it all, man. Like, I've been on all the medication. I've been depressed. You know, the whole kind of. There's been a lot of darkness and me wanting to kind of just end it and all that kind of stuff in the past due to being so low from self-inflicted stuff and depression and all the rest of it. I have no need. I drank to get smashed. There was I didn't like the taste of alcohol.
And do you think that that's, I mean, it's something that I'm really interested in again, coming back to childhood and the kind of the precursors and the so much is happening in those developmental stages when we're supposed to be being nurtured and grown and celebrated and safe, and we're meant to be discovering the world and being binded and bonded. You know, it feels like so much of the trauma that we seem to suffer, lots of it does stem from something missing in those years there. I know myself, my family broke up when I was young and we had a difficult time, and I've been trying to piece things together, and I've been through, you know, similar things, I guess, with music and drugs and abuse and depression, and I don't know. It's something that fascinates me to this day. I just wonder what were we missing? What happens? What's the trigger?
Well, I didn't feel necessarily hard done by. I hated being poor when a lot of my friends were buying the Air Max and all that, you know, and I couldn't. I had to save my dinner money to buy records and all that kind of stuff. That's what hurt me the most. That's what I remember the most, being poor. The other stuff, like, I guess at the time, I didn't think there was a real issue with it. My dad had a good time, he had a drink. There was this, until later on in life, I didn't realise that we didn't have a very social, warm family, not loving, you know, I didn't really know any different. So at the time, I didn't feel like, oh, this is crap. Now I look back, I think, yeah, I'm not going to be that. That's not going to be my family.
No, good on you for that. Yeah.
I guess the lack of the love, albeit it was, like I said, it wasn't horrible, wasn't abusive. You know, my dad shouted a lot. He was just Larry anyway. He rarely spoke. It was just everything he shouted. And then actually going through therapy, it turns out that contributed towards my anxiety, because they tapped into kind of the triggers and stuff from an early age, and being threatened. You wait till your father comes home, and me being really scared of my dad. That caused the butterflies, which then developed into anxiety and stuff. But yeah, at the time, I just didn't really think there was
That's the
much
thing,
wrong.
isn't it? That's the scary thing, because when you're a child, you don't know any different. You know what's happening in between these four walls, and this is the world. And that's, as I'm a parent now, so aware of it, having been on this journey and trying to read books, and I've spoken to hypnotherapists and different people, and everything I read, everything I kind of connect the dots on my path is as I look back to childhood, I think, yeah, it's not that when we think of what triggers trauma, what triggers anxiety and things, I think for so many of us, we have this image of maybe, you know, being in a grotty flat with no windows and being beaten around the place all the time. But actually what is unhealthy is not necessarily, you know, physical abuse, or even it's maybe sometimes it's just that it's just not connected. It's just not connected. You're just not together. Do you know what I mean? And just that is something you wouldn't have a clue of that when you're a kid. You harden to it. You're a product of your environment, and you're lucky, like you mentioned earlier, if you do have the introspection and the ability to look at the pattern and see it, and then go, hang on a minute, I recognise I'm going in this direction. I need to reverse back out of here, reset. I want my kids to go down this road. That's a really blessed moment, because so many of us, we don't ever realise that we're in a pattern, and we're in the momentum of the pattern just repeats and repeats and repeats.